it's safe to say that deep down, everybody wants a time machine. Not necessarily because they regret having done something terrible, as that would require the ability to learn from one's mistakes, but really just as a tool to make some positive changes throughout history. I mean, I personally, if given a time machine, would be very responsible and only use it for humanitarian purposes. I would warn people about 9/11, snitch on Al Capone, flood a bunch with Cleopatra, shoot teenage Hitler in the bars, get filthy rich with crypto, flirt with Cleopatra some more, and convince Elon Musk into permanently moving to Mars. Like I said, I would be a very responsible panda, which is why I was so pleased when a small Australian developer released a mystery adventure role-playing game where you time travel back to the days of the Roman Empire and save a city from certain doom. The Forgotten City is a game developed by Modern Storyteller, a small indie company from the land way down under. The game begins with you finding yourself washed onto the shores of Italy, where a strange lady asks you to find her BFF, who had gotten lost after stumbling into a wormhole somewhere inside the ruins of an ancient Roman city. You know, classic 21st century problems. But before you start posting those missing child posters, you first must choose your backstory. Your options are a soldier, an archaeologist, a fugitive, or an amnesiac. Not quite sure if that last one was necessary, as all the others provided something unique and useful for each of your playthroughs. Well, regardless, since I didn't want to end up being nailed to a cross for being a heathen, I decided to pick the soldier class for my first run, as it started you with a pistol. This way those silly Italians would need to think twice before getting any ideas to mess with me. If only Jesus had thought of that. Anyway, I soon find myself 2,000 years into the past, standing in front of the local magistrate, who explains to me that the inhabitants of this city are subjected to a divine collective punishment, where should any one individual commit a sin, the entire populace will be punished and turned into gold. The paranoid old tosser then goes on telling me how he suspects that someone among them would soon commit a sin and doom them all before the day is up, and that it would be super uber nice of me if I could interview the locals and identify the naughty would-be sinner before it's all too late. Well, old man, I'm not entirely sure if I'm the most qualified individual for the job, and I certainly don't think it's a good idea to trust a complete stranger to handle such a crucial task, but I'll definitely give it my all. It turns out the old man's instincts were correct after all, in that somebody definitely was about to commit a sin, and that somebody happened to be me all along, as just 5 minutes after our conversation, I ended up shooting a shady merchant who tried to scam 1,000 denarii off me, which pissed off their god and triggered the gold apocalypse, forcing the magistrate to sacrifice himself and reset the time loop. Probably a lot sooner than he had originally expected. See guys, this is why collective punishment never works. Some assholes just always ruins it for everyone else. Though, to be fair, in my defense, the whole incident was an accident. I mean, I wasn't trying to kill the guy. I was just firing wildly into the air, hoping to scare him into dropping his prices. But I guess guns just cause more problems than they solve. Anyway, with that one victimless crime out of the way, I began the new day, once again, by following leads throughout the city. And I've gotta admit, the writing is just remarkable. All the plot threads are interconnected, making the story a lot more sophisticated than it originally appeared. The characters all have unique opinions about the situation they're in, with some members refusing to acknowledge the evidence in front of them and rejecting the need for martial law, while others are more than happy to make the most out of these circumstances and profit off the misery of everybody else. The extreme spectrum of human behavior truly models society and helps you understand the very nature of the city, as well as what's going on with its inhabitants. The game also dives into the themes of collective punishment, the hypocrisies of a utopia, and the interpretation of morality. All in all, the writing is an absolute masterpiece and is what carries the game. In fact, one of my favorite moments involves a philosophical debate with one of the city's inhabitants regarding our understanding of what constitutes a sin and whether or not our understanding of morality can even be perfectly defined. What does let the game down, however, is the technical flaws. The game was originally made as a Skyrim mod, so you can already expect a bunch of texture problems if your graphics card happens to include any ray tracing functionalities. There also wasn't any point in having separate backstories for your character, as it really doesn't seem to have any meaningful impact on gameplay. As I had mentioned earlier, the gun is practically useless. Additionally, all locked areas can be opened by just progressing through the story, and the only thing being an archaeologist offers is a little bit of extra lore. So yeah, I don't see why the developers couldn't have just combined all of them just so that you get the most out of your playthrough. And if you don't believe me, just remember one of the playable options is an amnesiac, which does nothing but give you a bit of extra health. And so obviously you can beat the game without any of the perks offered by the other three options, making them effectively just gimmicks. Overall, outside of a few minor technical problems, The Forgotten City was truly a fantastic game. From a writing perspective, it's pretty close to perfect. All the story threads are well resolved and reaches towards a compelling ending. Every character gets a satisfying resolution, apart from Navia, who the writers seem to have forgotten. Plus, we get answers to all the philosophical questions that were brought up throughout the game. It's also just incredibly fun to experiment with the game's various endings and just have fun dicking around in a second playthrough, especially because you're going into the game with full knowledge on how to solve everyone's problems, as well as how to piss off all the assholes in the city.